Hello, hello, and welcome to another LinkedIn live event, also appearing as a podcast on Spotify and as catch up on YouTube as well, and also live streaming on YouTube and Twitch if you're hanging out there, but no one tends to hang out there. We're all here on LinkedIn. So it is another episode of Freeformers Unplugged, unstructured, unplanned, unscripted conversation with awesome people trying to do awesome things in the world of work. And today, I have another guest. Yes, that's right. We are kind of loading up on guests at the moment. Emily is not with me, but she will be. Actually, I'll be in Green Bay next week, so she won't be with me next week either. But she will be with me probably the week after that, or the week after that. She will make an appearance. I promise Emily's loyal followers and fans, she will be back. But for today, we have an incredible person that I've only actually spoken to twice before, but it feels like those two conversations have been, well, incredible. And it feels, I think the last time we spoke, it just felt like we've been speaking for a very, very long time. So I am delighted to welcome the awesome, the incredible Dan Dowman. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. And I'm sorry that to all the fans of your other guests who may be here at some point or may not. I mean, it all sounds very exciting.
So when we started Freeformers Unplugged, it was just me and my business partner doing the first season we did. We do 10 episode seasons, was me and her. And then I'll be honest, she got busy and didn't have time. So I was like, hey, we've got some cool people we can bring on. So yeah, it's with intent, but I keep getting such incredible guests like yourselves that like she just gets edged out. But she will be back.
I can only apologize.
You don't need to do that. I need to thank you for joining us on this Wednesday lunchtime. And we're talking today about Culture Crush. The Culture Crush. What is it?
Well, Culture Crush is kind of like this accidental community that I've built over the last 18 months, and we've got about 2,000 members involved now. I mean, across channels, right? Like it's not like we're running this closed group thing. It's like a newsletter, live events, podcast, and yeah, man. When I started it, I experienced in my career no less than 5 redundancies in 11 years, right? And it's kind of like a sob story, but what's the business world trying to tell you, right? If you keep like, but pandemics, changes in legislation, business pivots, acquisitions, you name it, I was always on the wrong side of it. So about 18 months ago, I decided, right, I could just keep going for more jobs, but I've got a feeling that the same thing is going to happen again. And so I decided to launch my company Anthem, which was all about, facilitation, helping leaders take the values off the wall and make them real within their teams, really helping people find and connect to that sense of purpose. And so I was like, well, you've got to have a podcast if you're gonna talk about culture. And so I launched Culture Crush. Well, it was originally called Strategy Shorts. This is how these things grow, right? It was called Strategy Shorts. It was about bite-sized content, like 15-minute episodes. And then after a while, I got kind of bored with that, and I thought I need a rebrand. Yeah, I mean, my business is only 18 months old, but what do I need? I need an instant rebrand. And so I decided to roll with Culture Crush, and it's been wonderful, man. We've had people coming on and talking about company culture, talking about productivity, talking about leadership confidence, like the whole gamut of things that we could talk about. And it's been growing and growing ever since. And so it's been a thrill. And you are going to be a guest, of course, in a couple of weeks.
Apparently so. Yeah, that's very exciting. I think the thing that I love, and we'll talk more about that, but I just want to explore Culture Crush a bit more because I think, in fact, I was talking to someone this morning about it, in the fact that there is this, if you set something up as a HR or a learning and development or people kind of like conference, event, podcast, whatever, you tend to get people kind of either doing the circuit who talk on workplace things and you just hear the same old stories. But what I love about what you've done is you're just bringing so many different perspectives from different facets, different walks of life, that I think that's ultimately what makes, well, ultimately push the world of work forward in bringing some of that stuff. Because if we just hear from the same old people talking about the same old things, and making like these kind of micro adjustments to what already exists, we won't really push forward at any pace, and not necessarily with any creativity or innovation either. So, but actually, I just do need to say hello to everyone joining into the live stream as well. I completely forgot to do that. I
Hi
think
guys.
Bob. I got Bob in chat, which is nice. Hello, Bob. It's Green Bay. It's not Green Bay, Alabama. It's Green Bay, Wisconsin. So no Forrest Gump references for you there, Bob. Unfortunately. So Dan, you've been doing Culture Crush for a while. Who's been your favorite contributor to Culture Crush?
I think my favorite contributor. So there have been many, many great conversations, and of course the people who attend Culture Crush, the fans. You know, I got to give them a shout out because the way we produce Culture Crush now, and again, this is kind of, I guess this is a message to everybody out there who's like trying to build their own consultancy or coaching a business or something like that. Just do stuff. Just do stuff and see what works. Don't try and kind of like perfect it from day one. Just start getting yourself out there, and the market will start to respond to you, and you'll start to get an idea of what's going to work for you. Because, like I said, I started with Strategy Shorts, it became Culture Crush. Now we do Culture Crush Live, which are these live events that people can come and join us for. And it's kind of like a group reflection, right? I mean, it's not like all tears and kind of soul searching, but we have about 10 minutes with a great speaker, and then we reflect on what they've said together. And it's the content of that conversation which goes on to form the podcast episode. So when I say the fans, I mean, I'm obviously, I don't really, they're not, fans of Culture Crush. That would be very grand. And if they are, brilliant. But what I mean is they're the people who actually contribute to those episodes, right? The conversation that you and I will go on to have after our Culture Crush live edition will be made 10 times better because of the contributions that people bring with them to that conversation. But to actually answer your question, I'm gonna send some love to my very good friend Justin Foster, who we got in touch where I was a part of this like podcast matching service for a bit, and Justin reached out and said,
Hang on. I'm going to have to interrupt you.
yeah.
Podcasting matching service. Is this like Tinder for people to appear on your podcast? Is that what you're talking about? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's you're not far wrong. I mean, basically, you set up a profile and you say, "This is what my show is about," and then people reach out to you and say, "Hey, I want to be on your show." The really funny thing is that I stopped using it after a while because I realized that getting introductions and referrals from people who've been on the show was the way to go, and that's how I know you, because I interviewed Michelle and Hartley on shout out to Michelle on the show a few weeks ago, and she introduced me to you, and so it goes, right? And when I was doing this podcast matching service, you would meet. There was one guy, and for context, right, I used to just throw myself into the recording. I'd look at someone's profile when they volunteered to be on the show, and I would see things like New York Times best-selling author, 50,000 people in my community, and like some really big stats, right? And I was like, "Oh, this guy's really, really like he knows what he's doing, right? So I've got to have him on the show." And because I was trying to like work at speed and was working too quickly and was trying to be too efficient with everything, right? That's what I'm trying to say about like find your way, like just see how it goes. But I was operating too quickly. So I'd get people on the show, hit record, and then it turns out that this guy was a Donald Trump loving. So what happened is he had written a book, and it was all about how to abuse and harass like Democratic Senate nominees or something like that. And it was literally called something like how to abuse, harass, and harangue your local nominee.
Oh, so it wasn't a subtle nod to the topic. It was like, oh no, overtly, this is how to do this. Okay.
No,
Great.
it was taking it head on. And basically he was a New York Times best-selling author because Donald Trump had endorsed the book. And so I was like, I'm not sure this is good for the Culture Crush brand, man. So I had to try and figure out a way that I could politely end the recording and say, maybe we'll reconnect in the future for a different episode. Of course, I didn't reach out again, but yeah. So I realized that the matching service, it's great, but you've got to use it wisely.
Yeah.
And then I started kind of setting up these meet and greets, right? And one of the meet and greets was with this guy Justin Foster, and we were having this really lovely conversation about like branding and marketing. And I just asked him a really upfront question. I said, look, I've met some pretty colorful people in this journey of podcasting, and not always in a way that I think is good for me or my brand or my audience. And I said, so do you have any views or opinions about things that some people, because you've got to figure out how do you ask this question in a way that's not offensive to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I said, do you have any kind of beliefs or views that some people might consider fringe?
Mhm.
And he totally saw the question, was like, I understand what you mean, and no, I don't. And there was something about just having like a really heart to heart moment on that, which triggered this really lovely friendship. Um, Justin and I have never met in person. We just met through this matching service. And now we speak every week. And he's really, really helped me shape what I'm doing in the world, helped me show up with more confidence. He's been an absolutely massive supporter of mine. And we're collaborating on all sorts of different things now. But he's been my most regular returning guest. And he's like the Rick Rubin of brand, I would say, if you're familiar with Rick Rubin. He's a real poet, and he's got some really amazing things to say. So if you're not following Justin already on LinkedIn, you should, because you're going to see some pretty punchy, interesting philosophical threads appearing in your feed. So go and check him out.
Which you don't find too much on LinkedIn because there's a lot of shit. Quite bluntly, you know, we talked about this on, I can't remember when we talked now, was it on Monday? We talked
Monday,
about
yeah.
like the kind of garbage that is kind of spewing from LinkedIn thought leaders or influencers or whatever you want to call them about just I've made this amount of money and I've grown this much and I've done this and I've scaled this and I've done this, and it's like brag, 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 brag. All of which isn't particularly helpful for anybody in our situation or similar situations, you know, starting something up, because it's like, well, you can either try and be inspired and aspire to be those individuals, or you can actually just pull back a little bit of that layer and kind of go, you know what? Take this with a heavy pinch of salt, because A, that's not a typical journey, and B, they're probably exacerbating or amplifying, you know, what actually happened. I think Jake Humphrey did one. I can't remember if I told you this. Jake Humphrey did one where he did the classic "this probably never happened" post on LinkedIn. It's like, I was just on a busy train into London, and I was just about to walk off the train, and this guy hands me a note, and then walks off, and I don't see him, and then so there's a picture of like he's taken a picture of the note that this guy handed him. Now, the kind of doesn't work because he sat down on the train. So actually, just in the narrative of when the note was going, you were getting off the train. So you stood up to get off the train, got the note, then sat back down and took a picture. That probably didn't happen. But also, what's in the background is like his notebook, and it's like, the paper and the handwriting is very similar, and it's like, please tell me. Look, I have a huge amount of respect for Jake Humphrey because he's been in my life a lot. He was a children's TV presenter. He then presented the Formula One, and he's a Norwich City fan. These are all things that have kind of followed me around in my life, and he lives pretty local as well. So I see him out and about on his bike, and I'm just like, why do that? What does that add to the narrative of some of that stuff that's on LinkedIn? So, I'm always up for hearing and seeing the content, and the way you described it was so lovely. There was that, you know, the kind of fringe ideas, these kind of things that don't really get spoken about because the algorithm is kind of treating, I had a 60K month this month, and like, cool, who cares? No one
Mm-hmm.
really cares. All I now feel is a little bit worse about myself because I'm not making 60 grand a month. Far, 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 far from it. So that's really cool. I've seen Bob has popped back up in the old comments, and Bob wants to talk about redundancy. He wants to come on, join the show, and talk about redundancy, which is cool. If you're not following Bob, Bob has a real different approach to thinking about redundancy, because I think you hear the word redundancy, you go, oh, that's bad, that's dull, that's nothing good comes from redundancy. And you even just mentioned it slightly yourself there, right? But the viewpoint in that redundancy or a similar process can be quite a invigorating transformational moment in someone's career. It isn't talked about enough, because it's like, how much can you get paid? How can you legally get someone out of a company when you don't need them anymore? It's like, actually, how could you make that intentionally a great moment for someone's career? Because it's going to happen, whether you like it or not, whether you want to be made redundant or not. But it could be something that completely transforms your career for sure. Did you
Yeah.
say? Sorry, did you say you were made redundant? Was that right?
Yeah. 5 times in 11 years.
Okay, so
So I don't have much great to say about redundancy.
which was there? What was the what was the best and worst? Like, were they all as bad as each other, or was there one way you went, you know what, they did as much as they could in that quite crap situation?
No, I am yet to experience, like, and I know that this is it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people go into the work of HR and people development with a genuine desire to support people.
Yeah.
But when the rubber hits the road and when the economy crashes or when an acquisition takes place, it is your job to defend the interests of the company in the end. And I think that is very, very difficult. So I do have a lot of respect and a lot of understanding for people who are kind of who've been delegated the axe swinging responsibility, because I think lots of senior leaders duck it and give it to the HR people and say, there you go, it's time to destroy a life. I'm yet to experience a redundancy process that I felt. No, there is one. I worked for a boutique consulting startup with someone who remains a dear friend of mine. And after a couple of years there, he just wanted to pivot the business into something else. Like, it wasn't, it was, he wanted to run a different kind of organization that didn't involve a team. Like, he didn't want a team of consultants. Like, that wasn't the way the business was going. And it wasn't what the business needed. And so I can look at that and go, he treated me with dignity, and it was still painful, right? It was my third redundancy, and so it's difficult for me. But yeah, dignity, respect, an honest appraisal of what was really happening. They were all good things, and I look back with a great deal of fondness of my time with that company as a result. The others, yeah, I mean, the others were all really quite tricky. You find yourself in a system and in a process which really does feel like a box ticking exercise.
Yeah.
And we need to be really honest with ourselves, right? The decisions have been made. People have agendas, and then you wrap it up in some paperwork to sell the story, so you can stay legally in the clear. But I think we need a more honest dialogue. Someone on, I'm trying to remember their name, that might come back to me. But one of my guests on Culture Crush, he had this great turn of phrase, which was, I know and I can tell you, I know and I can't tell you, I don't know. But the three things. So when you're having a
Yeah.
dialogue with somebody, just being honest and saying, like, I actually know the answer to that question, but legally I'm not able to talk about that with you.
Yeah.
Or here are the things that I can say, or this bucket of stuff I don't know about. Like, just having that kind of open dialogue with people, I think, can make the process easier. But yeah, I'm yet to experience, apart from that one small company, they've mainly been pretty terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I again trying to think about like a good process that I've either been part of or witnessed, and it's never really manifested itself. The interesting point is that in that moment in time, maybe it's a lofty aspiration to make that moment in time good for anyone, because it probably might be so impossible to do that. However, the cool thing is the reflection on the better one is like, there's no animosity there. from your perspective. In fact, you've actually kind of, you know, it was actually on reflection the right thing to do for everyone involved, etc., etc. Which is, I don't think there are many people who've been through a redundancy process that could say that, and I think that is like, that is probably the happy middle ground between let's make redundancy the best experience for everyone. That's where I'd love to get to, is that if you have to go through it, how do you make it the most enjoyable, transformative moment? But you probably can't.
I think you're absolutely right, and Bob's right. I mean that there is scope for personal transformation and redundancy, but I think one of the things that we also have to get real about is that if you get a payoff, then it can be a real moment for transformation, right? Like if you can be generous in your redundancy process and make sure that you allocate significant budget, resources, free coaching, signposting services, right? Go the extra mile for the people you're about to let go. Because in my situation, right, you know, your redundancy privileges don't kick in until the end of your second year in employment. So in my shoes, if you get made redundant 5 times in 11 years, you're basically seeing no security come out of that redundancy process. So it is always a massively high tension and high risk thing to go through, because there is no, like, there's no, I don't get a chunk of money that says, look, I can spend the next 6 months looking for a job. Like that never happened to me.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage any business owners to think, budget for it, allocate resources to it, and make sure that when you do make somebody redundant, you're going to say, look, for the next 6 months to a year, we've got you. We know that this is not an ideal situation, so we want to make sure that you can view it as a moment for transformation.
I love that. I love that. And I think the thing is that what policy and legislation does for HR, people experience, whatever you want to call it, is it gives you like an acceptable minimum to achieve. So in everything you've described, those organizations, they have done the bare minimum of what is expected, what they absolutely have to do. If they don't do it, there's tribunals, there's all sorts. So it's like, okay, cool, but in terms of, imagine if you treated your customers like, oh, we delivered the bare minimum. We delivered the bare minimum that they expected. We didn't made no effort to go above and beyond. Like, that is a world where you wouldn't do that. You just wouldn't do it for a customer. So why would you do it for an employee? Absolutely baffles me. And it's I get why you would, because it's like, it will save us money. We do the bare minimum because it means we spend less and it saves us money. And then this kind of brings me to my second point, and the whole reason, kind of part of our methodology is like, well, what is the actual commercial value of post-employment advocacy, and can you measure it? Because what people say and do once they've left will actually have an impact on your business. The only reason you don't think it does is because you don't measure it. And so it's an unquantifiable amount of money or brand equity that you're gaining or losing as a result, but no one measures it from an employment perspective. Measure it from a customer perspective. What are people saying, and how, what do they do once they've left us? Why have they left us? All that kind of stuff. But when it comes to an employee, it's like, we legally did the stuff, so we're all right. And it's like, is it though? And the thing is that the whole notion of employment is completely changed anyway, because an organization, a company, is a transient moment in that relationship is transient. Like it will end at some point. Like whether you like it or not, it's going to end, and it's going to end in like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year period. It's not going to, very unlikely to be a 20-year period. And the whole system of measurement is predicated on how can we get people to join us and stay as long as possible and give us everything, and then we'll end that relationship when we're good and ready. And it's like, well, that's not a mutually beneficial relationship. And employment really should be a mutually beneficial relationship, because that's just, from a societal level, that's what I believe it should be, I guess. And I the thing I always mention, are you aware of Bourneville, the story of Bourneville? Bourneville is the town just outside Birmingham, or now kind of absorbed into Birmingham, that a Quaker started to give all of his employees houses, hospitals, schools, all that kind of stuff, so that when they came to work at the chocolate factory that created Cadbury's chocolate, they had their lives sorted out. They were given everything they needed to live lives. Now, regardless of what the quality of all that stuff was, is like, well, we've got this employer who has gone, actually, I can make sure you have everything you need to live a fulfilling life, and therefore you'll probably work harder and better for me as a result. And if that was in the Victorian era, we now get to the point where it's like, okay, well, no, we've gone on the opposite end now. It's like, we'll just do the bare minimum. We'll do the bare minimum of what we can get away with because we know we can make more money as a result. And I think the thing that we all just need to remember is the reason why companies have employees is so they can make more money. Like, no one goes, I tell you what, I'd really like to have more employees because I'd like to take care of a group of people. No one goes into it like that. They probably should, and some people actually do. But no one really goes into it like that, and that creates this really transactional relationship that when you get those moments when they end, regardless of how well you try and end it, the relationship up until that point has probably been so transactional that you can't save it either.
It's interesting thinking about like companies being designed to sort of make more money, because there's this sort of like myth or fallacy around the fact that the economy always has to grow, or we always have to make more money, and like it's like, and for who? I mean, at the end of the day, the company has to make more money for the shareholders, right? Because the shareholders want more wealth. And you're right, there was a time when business wasn't as focused on that as the end goal. There was a time when business existed to develop an economy so people could have their needs met, so people could live well, and that was the end goal. And now the end goal does seem to have transitioned across the board to, we need to make more money. But sort of, why do we need to make more money? And you see, and to go back to your earlier point about kind of people on LinkedIn celebrating, like, I've had a 60K month, and writing about that story. And it's like, and yeah, and sort of, so what? Like, are you happy? It's great that you can fly anywhere in the world, but do you want to go anywhere? But maybe not, because you don't like yourself. Do you have any friends around you now who don't just kind of like talk about influencing things on LinkedIn? Like, do you have other friends still who are just like your neighbors?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you can now go eat in any restaurant. Oh, that's really wonderful. But like, do you actually enjoy it? And what do you want people to say about you at the end? Do you want people to say, oh, he was rich? I mean, what is it for? And I think that's one of the big issues that's like, that we need to wrestle with, is, what is it for? Companies that do the bare minimum and want to cut costs and just grow, like, ask yourself, senior management, like, ask yourself, why? Like, do you just want to do that until you retire and then be like, oh, I ran a big company? Why does that matter to you?
Perpetual growth is unattainable because there is no end point, and I think there is this perpetual growth is just ridiculous, and it's just a never-ending hamster wheel. It baffles me why some companies don't get to a certain size and go, hey, why don't we just maintain this great thing that we now have? We have let's say we have 50 people, everyone's happy, some people leave, some people come in, but we figured this formula out, and we're all taking out of this what we need, and we should just cherish what we have. Why do we need this perpetual growth? Which it completely baffles me. But people love money.
People do love money, but I've been thinking a lot about this recently, and one of the things that I don't mind teasing with your audience is that Culture Crush is going to go through another rebrand. It's like the second rebrand in 2 years, and the reason for that is because I'm getting more and more obsessed with this idea of community. Not paid, like, community is a real buzzword at the moment, right? About like, everyone's trying to set up a paid community. And I want to say, like, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to set up a club, like a gym membership. You pay your subs. You don't really care if that person comes or doesn't come, because you want to do the bare minimum. And you're going to stuff it with bare minimum activities that you wrote on ChatGPT. And you're going to hope that enough kind of sort of anxious people who are scared about their business turn up, try your thing, and maybe one or two of those people get results, but most of them won't. One or two people get results, send you a testimonial, and then you go back on LinkedIn and say, Catherine extend her views using my formula, join my course, and then a few more people join, and so it goes. It's like, it's at that hamster wheel again. It's like about perpetual growth, but you are doing the bare minimum, and you know it, and you're kind of using this word community in order to sort of make it attractive to people, but you're selling garbage and you know it. Now, but what I do believe is that none of us achieve anything by ourselves. I talked about Justin at the top of this call, right? Justin has helped me focus, helped me find my story, helped me notice things about myself that I wasn't paying attention to. Because I'm caught in the anxiety, right, of starting a business. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. I need to post consistently. I need to do that. I need to I'm experimenting with these messages. And Justin would say things to me like, do you realize what a good facilitator you are? Like when you host like a group call with people, do you realize that is like your real strength? And because I'm too busy doing it, I don't notice it, right? And so I need people like Justin who are going to point those things out to me. And in any person that we see who's made any kind of like reached any threshold of success, there is some kind of propellant in their story, whether they talk about it or not. They haven't made it on their own. Either someone in their network kind of propelled them to fame and like made one of their pieces of content go viral, or their parents gave them a trust fund, which meant that they could just experiment and burn through loads and loads of cash before finding the thing that worked for them. Or they've gone through redundancy and they have been given a significant payout, which means they're comfortable for a year and they can just kind of play around. Again, I guess that's the same as the cash scenario. Or nepotism, right? There are people in your network who can open doors for you, right? But whatever it is, every successful person didn't make it on the merits of their wonderful gifts and abilities. They made it despite their flaws. They made it in spite of their flaws, right? They had the network, the connections, the community around them that enable growth. I can see you're taking an intake
Well,
of breath.
I can't remember who was in the hot tub with Alan Sugar, but there was a post I saw the other day. I can't remember where it was, but it was Alan Sugar with someone else, and it could have been any business influencer. But it was the caption was just like, two self-made men just having a cigar in a hot tub. And I was like, to your point, self-made individuals is a very arrogant term to assume that you made it all because of yourself. Like there is that, even that phrase just undermines anybody who probably helped you get there. I do not believe Alan Sugar was a self-made man. I fail to believe. I believe he probably worked quite hard and did some stuff, and maybe worked harder maybe than most. But he'll have had opportunities. He'll have had people. He'll have had conversations that accelerated, amplified what he was doing. Because it sure as hell wasn't like amazing technology. No one walks around and goes, "Oh, that Amstrad thing was a piece of great technology."
I think kind of serendipity plays its hand, right? Like I think there are two levelers I think that everyone can access, right, when it comes to the growth of their business. One leveler is increasing your what I call serendipity surface area, right? You need to increase your opportunities to be lucky. Another guy who was on my podcast recently, Steve Chalk, who runs a big charity called Oasis. Shout out to you, Steve. He shared this story with me, right? He used to live in South London, and he used to live like just alongside the Palace ground, I think. And when he get to the bus stop, he'd always be looking down the street, waiting for the bus. Like, is the bus coming? Is the bus coming? And just anxiously waiting and thinking, I want to get to where I want to go, right? But because he was looking for it, when the bus came, he was like, I'm getting on the bus, right? And was paying attention to what was happening. Whereas if he was kind of head down in his anxieties in his phone or not paying attention, he might miss the bus, right? And it's a really simple illustration of the fact that you do need to think, how can I make myself lucky? What are the conversations that I can have? What rooms can I put myself in? What mailing lists can I join? Like, what are the things that I can do to increase? Like, what buses am I looking for? Because I promise you, if you adjust your mindset to think a bit more lucky like that, things are going to start coming your way because you're going to notice them. It's a bit like, you know, if I want to practice patience in life, and I say to myself, I really want to like start practicing patience, then I'm going to notice moments when my patience is
Mm,
tested, and I could choose a different response. If I decide I want to be generous with my money and give to charity, I'm going to start noticing, because I'm leaning into that narrative, I'm going to start noticing opportunities to make
yeah.
donations, right? But so many people say, do you know what? I want to make loads of money. And then because I want to, in the future, I want to be really generous with it. It's like, you won't. If you're not generous with it today, with the little you have, you will never have enough to be generous tomorrow. I promise you. And believe me, even if you're super rich, saying like, if you've got like millions and millions of quid, and then being like, I gave £1,000 today, aren't I generous? No, you're not. You're not, because you're giving what you can spare. You're not giving what you can
Yeah.
afford. You're not making a sacrificial gift that makes any dent on your life. You're telling yourself some story about you being generous, but you're not. So I want to say, like, yeah, you've got to increase your serendipity surface area by choosing what you're going to look for, and you will find opportunities to do that thing. I promise you that. The second thing is, and I think with Lord Sugar, right? Let's give him the title that he deserves.
Sorry.
Um, but with Lord Sugar, I don't know much about his story, but I think that he was somebody who had a lucky mindset. He saw an opportunity with Amstrad, and he embraced it. So there are other propellants like that as well. But then the other thing, yeah, is it's about the other leveler in business is
Yeah.
community. Who are the people that you could have conversations with? And then we'll talk about start with who in a minute. But like,
Well,
you go
so
on. You've got
Phil has
you want
just
to talk to.
like endorsed your comment about community, and I think the thing that's going in my head. I was talking to an entrepreneur the other day, and I was speaking to someone who works on his team, and I was like, "Oh, how did you meet? How did you meet this individual?" And they said, "Oh, I met him. I was working as security at a kind of exclusive kind of industry conference." I was like, "Okay." So I guess he was there as an attendee, and he's like, "No, he couldn't get in. They wouldn't let him in." It's like it wasn't he. It was a room he wanted to be in because it was full of people he should connect with, but he couldn't get in because it was that exclusive. So I was like, "Okay, so how did you meet him?" He's like, "Oh, he dressed up as security and pretended he was security for the whole day." And when the moment was right, when he saw the people he wanted to connect with, he took his security high vis off. Bam! There was a suit underneath there, and he went and worked the room. And you're just like, that is like you say, it's that serendipity. Is like you've got to, if you want to win the lottery, you've got to win as many lottery tickets as possible to give yourself the best opportunity. If you want to be in the right room in the right conversations, how can you make that happen? Because you could just sit there and go, "Well, I can't get into that conference. I can't do it." It was like, well,
Mm,
what if? What could you do to make that happen? I'm not saying it's legal or necessarily all above board, but that is just probably an extreme case of maximizing the opportunity to build your network, your followership, your community of people around you that are going to help you get to where you need to be. Um, and
mm,
just talking about that, I had a question for you about 25 minutes ago about Culture Crush, right? Because what I loved about what you said, I think this ties it back nicely to community, and start with who, is that the content isn't you and someone else just broadcasting out this narrative and this rhetoric. You have a very short, sharp, hey, this is what we think of the world. And you said 10 minutes, right? And then you open up the
mm,
conversation to the group, which is like, that makes so much more sense. So much more. And this is where, well, what Twitch streamers get it right as well, is that they engage their audience in two-way conversation. We're talking to Bob and Phil now, where we can't see them, but I'm still acknowledging their presence and we're having that two-way dialogue. So I think that's an important thing to note, is that you're kind of going over, not I'm going to say over and above, but that's not right. You're doing it correctly in kind of that form of content is designed to engage conversation, people in conversation, and you've kind of tapped into a pretty cool modality to do that.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and I'm really enjoying that process. And I think the most important thing here is that it's not like I haven't cracked the code, and no one's cracked the code, right? People have built systems and processes that work for them, and your challenge is to go out there and find the process and the system that works for you. But that's why the conversation with the group is way more important than the group listening to me or the group listening to the expert. The process is we put forward some prompts for you to riff off, right? For you to kind of then think, where does that, I always ask people, like, not to respond based on what they think, but what do they feel? When the speaker's talking to the group, where did you notice an emotional response? And what do you think that might be trying to tell you? Because we can be stuck in our heads, like trying to think, trying to process all the time, but actually, you know, that's not always a good filter for what you really need to hear. That's kind of, yeah, I think sometimes that gets in the way, and exploring your emotional response will lead you down far more interesting paths. So it's like, you know, anything that I do in the future with Culture Crash isn't going to be built around listen to my genius. List, I've created these posts and you're going to go viral. And here's the AI system you need to build to scale your business at a gazillion miles an hour. It's like, no, that is not the kind of stuff that you need to hear. And actually, I want to go back a step, right? Because the room where the guy dressed as a security guy and to get in is like, actually, guys, I want you to break up with a fantasy that there is some exclusive room that you're not invited to. Like, it may actually be true, right? That there's this elite cohort of business leaders and you're not invited. Yeah, maybe not. But that room ain't for you. The world needs you to allow your soul and the thing that you want to build come to life. That room is going to change you into someone that you're not. And there are people out there who need your expertise, who need your kindness, who need your skill. And if you try and do it their way, those people who need that will never hear you because you're acting like them. So I say, fuck that room. Make your own. That's what I want to do. Like the guy, I mean, I'm glad it will work for somebody. If you want to dress like a security guard and do that, because, right, you might want to meet somebody, go nuts. But for the rest of us, forget about it. Reject that exclusive club.
I love that.
Come to mine instead.
I think it was something like build your own room and do that. And that is what I've done. I've built my own room to hang out in with all these people. So, wow, what a beautiful segue. So you mentioned the phrase "start with who," and I think we all know and have seen a similar phrasing from a American British chap who had a flip chart one day and drew something and then wrote a book about the flip chart, and now just I'm not quite sure what he does, but he tells people his opinion on various things because people want to listen. What is start with who then? Because start with why we all know, but what's start with who?
Well, let's analyze Simon Sinek for 1 second.
I mean, please.
And Simon is someone that, you know, come on the podcast, Simon. It'd be great to have you. What's interesting though is that he said something in the market, right? He said something which was kind of something that he felt, it was like, this is what I believe, and I'm going to put it out there into the world. Now, it just so happened, maybe we've got lucky, serendipity, surface area, all of that kind of stuff, but it went viral. The market responded to what he said. So then he goes, well, okay, how do I lean into this story that I've noticed about myself that people are responding to? And you follow the thread. And whether you agree with him or not, whether you find him irritating or not, he is a great example of somebody who actually lent into the truth that they wanted to share. And when the world responded, went, right, I'm going to pull that thread. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know if there was a point where Simon sat there and thought, oh, what exclusive rooms can I get into with other people who, like, I'm sure he gets into exclusive rooms now and has loads of great conversations with, what's the Adam Grant, like that whole crowd, right? I'm sure that's quite easy for him now, but I'm sure at the time he thought, what is the truth that I need to tell? And I bet he didn't think about those exclusive clubs. He just got busy telling that story. Let's go bigger for 1 second, right? Let's talk about like some of the great icons
bigger
of
than Simon
history.
Sinek? Are you joking? He's the
I'm talking Martin Luther King. I'm talking Gandhi. That's how big
going
I'm going.
stratospheric.
I'm going stratospheric, but I have a good point, right? The point is this. Yeah, Martin ended up, you know, in Washington saying, I have a dream. But that wasn't where he started. He didn't wake up. He didn't, like 20 years before that, didn't go, well, do you know what? Today I'm going to be Martin Luther King. I'm going to be like, an icon of the civil rights movement. No, he just woke up and he said, I need to peacefully declare my truth to the world that we should have civil liberties and we should have equal rights and we should be able to get on the bus without people giving us a hard time, right? Like that's all he woke up and thought, I'm going to start talking about this, right? And then he built community around him, people who could amplify his message, people who could help him organize. And through that community, he became Martin Luther King, the brand. But he just started with a mission. Gandhi, didn't think, well, I'm going to be, India's, most iconic leader of all time. No, he just thought, I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to live for peace. I'm going to speak up for people's rights, non-violence. And I'm just going to do that for like the next 50 years. And eventually, the world really caught on to his story. Let's talk about Nelson Mandela, right? And Nelson Mandela comes out of prison and he says, we've got to forgive each other, guys. How like counter-cultural is that? Right? And the man became a beacon of hope, but he didn't come out of prison thinking, well, I'm going to be president today, thanks very much, or like I'm going to be this icon. He just started telling the truth at the center of his soul, at the center of his story. And people responded. And as people responded, a pathway began to emerge. But he didn't sit there and go, right, what's the community that I need to join to help me execute this grand vision that I've got? He just started doing the thing. Simon Sinek just started doing the thing. Now, it's kind of weird to have Simon Sinek and Martin Luther King, but you get my point, right?
I'm getting this image of like,
what's the truth?
I'm getting this image of your Mount Rushmore, where there's Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Simon Sinek on the end. Going, how did he get there? How is he now chiseled into the side of Dan's mountain?
Well, exactly. But you get the point. It's like we've been sold on this idea of what scale is. We've been sold on this idea about what success looks like. We've been sold on this idea that perpetual growth is somehow important, right? And so we live in that tension of like, how do I achieve that thing? Who told you need to achieve that thing? Like, what is the thing that you just want to do today? What's the thing that you care about? And okay, so let's talk about, before I start spinning off in another direction. So start with who, because start with why I find problematic, because most people don't know what their why is. The world is too noisy, too complicated. We're sold on too many things that don't really matter to really understand what our why is. And I think it's just such a difficult question for people. So when I say start with who, in our conversations, right, this is our third conversation of all time, and we feel like we're good friends. But there are certain points when we talk and I get excited and you'll say to me like, Dan, did you notice that when your eyes lit up? It's not necessarily something I notice about myself because I'm in the tension still. I'm in the stress of like running a business and trying to figure it all out. Right? I'm in the view, but you can see the view. You're looking back at me and going, Dan, you reacted to something there that really stood out. Did you notice it too? And you can point it out to me, right? So I want to say, when I say start with who, I'm literally saying who in your network can amplify you, right? But take that a step back. Who are the people around you, friends, family, that you can say, when we talk about life and we debate stuff, where do you see me light up? When do I start talking with that 10% extra passion? Like, where do you see my eyes go a bit watery or my lip quiver because I'm so passionate or angry or whatever? Like, when are those moments? because your friends, your family, your loved ones, they will tell you. They will be like, oh, well, when we talk about this, or in the coming weeks when you're just hanging out, they know to notice. It's a bit like if you want to be patient, you'll see opportunities to be patient. If they know that you're trying to figure out like what you're about in this life, then they will start to notice those emotional moments in you and they'll tell you about them. And maybe that begins to help reveal the why, right? The thing that is hidden that you don't know about, the thing that is just kind of off stage, whilst you're focusing on the stage that the world has told you to build and like be successful, be this, be that. What's off stage for you? Only the people around you can help you spot those things. So start by the why will come. Start with who.
I've got to be honest with you, I was at a pretty low ebb because I've had quite a busy morning, and this has reinvigorated me right to get back onto my afternoon with a new vim and vigor. Like that's was just awesome. I knew it was going to be awesome because we've spoken slightly about it before, but I love that we've had this kind of unstructured, unplanned conversation to delve a little deeper. Because if I set you a set of questions, say, "Hey, I'm going to ask you these 5 questions, and we're going to have this conversation," I don't think we'd have gone on some of the beautiful tangential elements that we have done today. So I want to thank you because it's been awesome and energizing in equal measure. We spoke very briefly that we're going to be together again very soon for Culture Crush. When is it? How is it? Where is it? What do we do to get involved? I know where I'm going, but like, what about everyone else?
Yeah, so it's the ROI of being human, and there's kind of the subtitle is why treating people makes more money. We're talking about kind of like slaying the corporate dragons in this live broadcast, but here we are. We're going to teach you how to leverage people to make more cash. But there is some deeper, really grounded, good stuff in what we're going to be talking, what you're going to be talking about. And it is on the 25th of June. That's Wednesday. That will be 6 p.m. For people in the UK. You'll have to do your own time zone maths for everybody else. But if you want to join us, it lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour. Toby will only speak for 10 minutes. The rest of the time, 5 minutes will be me. The rest of the time will be you guys, give or take. I mean, don't hold me to it. Sometimes we're going to riff. And yeah, it's completely free. There are 30 spots available. There's not as many as that now. So spots are limited. It's not recorded, right? Like if you want to be in the conversation, you've got to join the conversation. So many people sign up for stuff and I want to be honest with you guys. All those things you sign up for and you get the replay, you don't watch it. I don't watch it.
Yeah.
Nobody watches it. We're hoarding all this information and we never actually read any of it. I was talking to somebody yesterday, right? And I've got this book here, The Joy of Work. Right? There you go. Haven't read it. Of course not. There's about 50 books here that I haven't read. And here's the thing. I could probably take one book off my shelf, really invest in it, spend a lot of time with it, like do all the things it says to do. I could probably get 10 years of use out of that one piece of work because it's not about the results, it's about the process of applying stuff. But yet we hoard, we save stuff on Instagram, on LinkedIn, saving, sign up for this event, but not watching the replay, all this kind of stuff. It's like stop it. Like, so you've got to come. If you want to join this conversation, you've got to come and join this conversation. And if you don't, no replays. Sorry, guys. But anyway, back to Culture Crash Live with you and me, 25th of June, Wednesday, 6 p.m. UK time. And if you want to join us, got to visit anthem.oo and click on the Culture Crash button on the site. It'd be super easy to find, but anthem.oo, and it'd be great to see you there because these are great conversations. We love it.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and we'll get that link put in the comments as well for anybody watching on catch up. But for now, wow, I usually peg these at 45 minutes and we're out at now 55, so we're gonna have to go.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, I don't think there's no need to apologize. Like, I have just got lost in the conversation, so I hope you all there in listener and viewer land have done as well. For the next episode, I'm going to be over in Green Bay, so I'm going to be live streaming from the venue where we are hosting the inaugural disrupt event in Green Bay. So maybe there'll be a surprise appearance from Mary and Callie, my fellow co-organizers at that event. Very much looking forward to flying over there on Saturday and experiencing all the things both Minneapolis and Green Bay has to offer. But for now, Dan, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will speak again very soon on the Culture Crush.
Bless you. Bye now.
Catch you later.